Welcome to the First Round Fantasy Podcast, your first choice for second round advice, with your hosts Gabriel Miramontes and Jacob Bartley.
Welcome on into the First Round Fantasy Podcast, your first choice for second round advice. Gabriel Miramontes, no Jacob Bartley today, but nonetheless, he'll be back soon. Thank you all for joining us, popping in to share some NFL news and fantasy implication. Today is March 8th, 2023. Before we get started, if you like what you hear, if you have anything to say, drop a thought in the comments. We appreciate it all. Drop a subscribe. We appreciate those too. If you don't like what you hear, if you don't like the advice, come back. Try us again another time, and maybe you'll change your mind. We got a lot of stuff to talk about in a little bit of time. Derek Carr, Lamar Jackson, Daniel Jones being the quarterbacks, and then we got Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs, and more to talk about at those skill positions. But man, oh man, technically NFL free agency has not started yet, but we're definitely feeling the ramifications of what will be a crazy offseason nonetheless. Starting off with the former Las Vegas Raiders quarterback, Derek Carr. All signs are pointing to, I guess, the contract's out. Everything's out now. He is a New Orleans Saint. I released a short a couple of days ago about what that looks like fantasy-wise as we move into the 2023 offseason. For me, not a lot changes for Derek Carr's fantasy outlook in 2023. Last year, he finished somewhere in that QB 15-16 range. I think he just kind of sticks there. I mean, you got to think. You go from the best wide receiver in football, Devontae Adams. You weren't really playing with Darren Waller for most of the year. You weren't playing with Hunter Renfrow for most of the year. You had Josh Jacobs absolutely go bananas. You can argue when healthy, that Raiders skill group is much better than what he's heading into in New Orleans, right? Now he looks like he's going to be having Chris Olave, who by all means, great, phenomenal athlete. I understand that. He's going to be great. He's going to be good to watch. It's going to be a good thing. That's all I really can say. But Alvin Kamara, looming suspension, possibly in the 2024 season. We'll see how that case comes out. I just think overall, skill position players, Raiders greater than New Orleans. Prove me wrong. Say otherwise. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the chat with when and if you decide to do so. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like something I'm totally enthralled about. I do think that he's now going into a division where he absolutely, let's think about it. Let's see. Tampa Bay doesn't know who their quarterback is. Carolina doesn't know who their quarterback is. I'm whiffing on a few other teams. Atlanta doesn't know who their QB is. So with that being said, Derek Carr, Joseph Mersaw, good friend of the show, said it the other day in a group chat. This was completely a business decision on Derek Carr's part. It gets him out of the AFC, the dreaded AFC. Now he finds himself in a weaker division. He can definitely, he can make it to the playoffs. We saw our team last year in that NFC South make it to the playoffs after performing what? I think they had a losing record, right? That was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So ultimately, not a lot changes for Derek Carr and his QB-wise. His fantasy outlook, he's a QB2. He's on a roster. You're going to be playing him, sure, those super flex leagues especially. But in redraft leagues, those 1QB leagues, he's a streamer at best. Hopefully he gets off to a hot start. Hopefully I'm eating the words that I'm saying right now. But let's move on to Chris Olave. He's a much more interesting prospect here. Last year, much more viable for fantasy. We definitely saw promise in what he was able to do. Let's take a look here. Last year, I'm taking a look. Where was he? Let's find him. Olave. I had it yesterday. Finished as the wide receiver 25. Now, missed a few games due to concussion. And also, look at the QB play he was playing with all year. Andy Dalton, Jameis Winston in and out of the lineup. Oh, and don't forget those games where Taysom Hill was tearing it up for your fantasy team. Maybe not. It was just one game. But Derek Carr is an upgrade for as much as we're saying he's a downgrade. Not necessarily a downgrade for the New Orleans Saints, but for his fantasy perspective, it doesn't really move the needle too much. Chris Olave, this should be a positive jump in the right direction, right? Again, finishes the wide receiver 25 right now. He's currently my dynasty wide receiver. I'd say probably in that 11 to 15 range. Redraft, he's probably a little bit higher than that. I mean, I should say a little bit lower than that. But I definitely think he's the biggest benefactor as of right now from this standpoint. So Chris Olave goes up. Derek Carr stays the same. We really have to figure out what happens with Alvin Kamara here. And I think that's the big thing. I wanted to pull up an article here from the New Yorker, not the New Yorker. I think it's just your neighborhood. You know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, you guys know? It's a Thursday. We're all feeling it right now. But anyways, this news from NFL, just breaking down his contract. Let's see what it is. They say he's the first QB domino to fall in the 2023 offseason draft. Sure, that's great. $150 million. What does that mean for Jimmy Garoppolo? Look what Geno Smith just got. Look what Daniel Jones just got. To me, this is all just inflation because that's a lot of money. $70 million guaranteed. Yeah, we know all that stuff about visiting them early on in the offseason. We heard the rumors about it at the Pro Bowl. You know, he's 31. It is what it is. He reconnects with Dennis Allen, who started. Yeah, that's right. He started with him in 2014. They fired Dennis Allen just 4 games into the season. I do remember that. I do. It wasn't a good time. But like I said, upgrade, right? Andy Dalton, Jameis Winston last year weren't exactly on fantasy radars, especially when you put Taysom Hill into the mix. And I read a stat the other day where the stats that Derek Carr put up were the same as both of the Saints QBs put together last year. And when you think about that, you're like, oh, that's great. Well, clearly those 2 QBs played poorly. Derek Carr got benched, but Derek Carr made a Pro Bowl. It happens, right? It happens. Derek Carr, end of conversation. Dynasty-wise, redraft-wise, he's a QB2. Chris Olave, he's definitely in that wide receiver 1 discussion, tier breaker, wide receiver 2 discussion. Alvin Kamara, I hope he plays. If he doesn't, it doesn't matter. He's coming back. He's going to be, 28, 29 coming into this 2023 season. Juwan Johnson, tight end there, who showed promise last year. You have to keep an eye out. Taysom Hill, is he still going to be a factor? I think so, right? So it's just a lot to kind of boil over. We're very early into this 2023 offseason, but definitely something to keep an eye on as we progress. I'm happy for Derek Carr. As a Raiders fan, you definitely have bias. I'm sure you hear different perspectives. But I'll say this, and I'll end the Derek Carr on this. I said it multiple times because I've seen it once, and it's one of those stats that's just eye-popping. In their first 9 seasons, he is second to none other than Saints. Now I can officially say it. The Saints Hall of Famer quarterback Drew Brees in record number of losses in their first 9 seasons. Clearly, Drew Brees turned it around. Will Derek Carr turn it around? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Let's move on. Let's talk about another QB in the mix who found himself getting a pretty penny, right? I don't know. Are you happy to hear about it? I am. I think it's funny. And that's Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones now finds himself with a brand new contract up there in New York. I think it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. What are your thoughts, right? He finished as the QB7 last year. This is from the New Yorker. I'll be sure to tag all these articles down below. Don't really get copyrighted here. But anyways, Daniel Jones signs a new contract. Locked it up. What is it? 4 years, 160 million. But I like the title of this article. This is what I like. The title of this article says, when the Giants can realistically bail on Daniel Jones' contract if things go south. That's what I think is so funny here. We're a day removed from him signing his contract. And the New Yorker, written by, I can only imagine, New Yorkers with the feelings of maybe, I don't know, New Yorkers. How can we get out of this if it goes south? And this is just a day removed, right? So how can they get out? I'm interested. Let's take a look here. If, however, the 25-year-old Jones does not build off the huge step forward he took during the 2020 season, the Giants have doubts about him after just 2 years. They can easily get out of the rest of the contract. All right. So he's fully guaranteed $82 million, and he'll be paid over the next 2023 and 2024 offseason. All right. Good to know. Good to know. Look at that guy. That's a guy who just made a bunch of money. What do you think? Let's talk about it from a fantasy perspective. I'll just keep that face there because I think it's funny. And we'll close that. Let's see. I just thought that was funny. That's all. It's interesting to me that you see articles like this literally just moments after he signs his contract. It's just kind of funny. He finished as the QB9 last year. So what does that mean? I talked about it at the top. I just think that, Trevor Lawrence behind him last year, if you expect him to take a big step, if you expect Justin Herbert to rebound, Lamar Jackson to play a full healthy season, which at this point, this is 3 consecutive seasons where Lamar Jackson has not played a full season. So maybe that one's a little bit more of a reality. If Russell Wilson puts it together, Derek Carr finds success, Kyler Murray plays a full season. Those are all guys just off the top of my head that, like, legitimately, they could have better seasons than Daniel Jones. So he's out of the QB1 discussion for me. What does that mean for redraft? Well, he's probably not someone who's going to be on your starting lineup week 1 if you're playing in a 12 QB league. Dynasty, he's super flex relevant. He's your QB1 if you have him right now. He's not going to take the load for you. I don't know what that means, but there's definitely some things that he has to figure out. Maybe this is the confidence boost he needs. Not only that, the Giants have Brian Daboll, coach of the year in the NFL in 2022. Isaiah Hodgins, young emerging rookie last year. They just released Kenny Golladay. They have some money left. I'd like to look at their cap space to see what they can do. But obviously they tagged Saquon Barkley, which we can kind of jumble into this conversation, make it a New York's brawl, right? Barkley also gets tagged along with Josh Jacobs. We'll get to him in a little bit. But there's just no fathomable reason at this point that I can expect that Daniel Jones is a top 10 dynasty QB or a top 10 redraft QB for that matter as well. Trevor Lawrence, again, Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, Tua, Russell, Derek Carr, all had injuries last year. Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, all deal with injury. All were dealing with injuries last year. If they're healthy and they're playing well, Daniel Jones kind of comes back to his little promise, right? And I also want to think Derek Carr was benched, right? He didn't play the last 2 weeks of the season. What was the spread here between just those last 2 weeks? And Daniel Jones didn't miss a game. If you factor in that spread, it's 24 fantasy points separating them, right? So there's quite a big jump in there. And I guess you can also lead you to the conversation, whereas you're in redraft leagues, if you're not getting the Mahomes and the Allens of the world, because those guys got 400 fantasy points for you last year, there's a tier break after that because everyone else is in the 380s, and even that's only Jalen Hurts. After that, it's Joe Burrow in the 360s. And after that, there's a huge drop-off all the way down to Geno Smith. There is no reason to draft a quarterback unless it's Patrick Mahomes and I guess maybe Josh Allen in the first 3 rounds. I would not take any quarterback drafted in rounds 5 through 10. I'm taking the dart throws on the guys that are left. The question is, who are going to be those guys? I'd love to kind of figure that out. That's something I'm actually quite interested in. So I'm going to go to NFC. They do drafts all throughout the year. This is just from the new year, but I want to make this more recent. Let's go to February 1st. Not today. February 1st. Let's do February 31st. February 28th. That's right. There's no days there. Okay, let's submit it. Let's see where he's going at right now. Let's look at those QB positions. Let's see. Josh Allen still going first. Wow. That is early. Okay. Currently going or in the first round. Good to hear. Good to see. Joe Burrow. Okay. Looks like okay. So these drafts are clearly not that accurate yet. We got to wait for more things to happen. Because, this is all drafts. Let's look at all draft on Superflex, all drafts. No, we'll keep it at all drafts, all teams, ADP. So this is just in the last 8 days. Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins. Let's just find where he's at. So Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert. I don't like this all. Let's just do primetime, cut line, silver buffet, classic. Let's do classic. Okay, let's see here. Daniel Jones is the 14th quarterback currently being taken off the board. What does that look like? Okay. See, the disrespect. 14th QB off the board, but Kyler Murray, Derek Carr, Geno Smith all going after him at this point. Kirk Cousins going before him. Wow. I totally buy into everybody else. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, gimmies. Trevor Lawrence, gimme. Justin Herbert, rebound year coming. Justin Fields, let's build around him, give him some offensive firepower to work with. Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, Tua, Russell. Kirk is where I am questionable. And I would put Kyler Murray in front of him. I would put Derek Carr in front of him. I would put Geno Smith in front of him. So, yeah, currently going right now, wide receiver or QB 14 off the board. But bye, oh bye. I was not expecting that. That's for sure. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I'm just waiting. It's just me today. No Jacob Bartley to keep the conversation going. So sometimes I'm talking to myself, but I love to be talking to you. Let me know your thoughts. But nonetheless, good for Daniel Jones. I'll get his face off of here so we don't have to see it anymore. Who's next? Let's talk about another QB. Are you guys ready? So am I. Who was the other QB that got some love this week? It was Lamar Jackson. Let's talk about it. Lamar Jackson, according to NBC Talk, reiterates report. Lamar Jackson was fully guaranteed deal. This was March 1st. It's irrelevant. Not the one I want. Let's see if we could find something a little bit better here. Now, this is as of yesterday. So, yeah, I'll take it. They tagged him yesterday. Seems to be relevant. This is CBS Sports. Again, I'll link all of these down below so you guys can take a look at them. Read what I'm reading. Nothing too fancy, though. Franchise tag taken. Lamar Jackson, Saquon Barkley, among players tagged ahead of free agency. Recent speculation over the last couple of days. I've seen some really crazy articles. What does it look like with a trade with the 49ers if Lamar Jackson heads there? Atlanta Falcons. What I do like about this is it's the non-exclusive tag, right? So teams can put offers on him, from my understanding. and other teams can put offers on Lamar Jackson, but Baltimore has, they can counter the trade nonetheless. So non-exclusive tag. Again, 3 seasons in a row where he just has not been healthy. The stats look good. 45-16 since drafting Jackson. 61 starts since he entered the league in 2018. He's drafting 28 points a game when Jackson is on the field and 20 when Jackson is not on the field. The fantasy stat that popped out to me was Lamar Jackson was averaging 28 fantasy points a game when Rashad Bateman was on the field. When Rashad Bateman was not on the field, 10 points less, 17 and a half fantasy points per game for Lamar Jackson when Rashad Bateman was not on the field. Again, there's probably a lot of other factors at play there, but that was just kind of an eye-popping, stat that caught out to me. We could also touch back on Saquon Barkley here. They were able to reach a long-term deal with Daniel Jones. We talked about that. He gets the tag 10.1, 10.9, 10.09. I don't know what that means. Change, I guess. Whatever. After $1 million, I seem to not care because everyone gets that. But, yeah. Back to Lamar Jackson, though. 3 consecutive seasons now where he has missed games. Last year, we'll have to go far to see. Let's see here. Oh, definitely not there. QB 14. QB 14 last year. He only played in 12 games. So part of you says, yeah, that's why you draft Lamar Jackson, because he finishes the QB 14 and was still able to end up as the QB 14. And he only played in 12 games. So I completely understand why you're taking the risk. The rushing upside is there. But, if you're a dynasty owner, rushing QBs don't have the longevity or the lifespan that we've seen of guys that are, withstanding to stay in the pocket and throw the ball a little bit more. See what you can get. See what you can get, right? The question is, what is that and what does it look like? I don't have an answer for you just yet. My mind's not completely in trade mode. I'm just reacting to all of these free agency moves and franchise tags and everything that's going on here. But I don't know. 14 last year, 12 games. Let's look at the ADP right now. According to NFC, he is currently the 8th QB off the board, going right around the 5th round. And again, these are skewed, right? These are only drafts that have happened in the last 7 or 8 days. But Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, Tua, all going behind him. Justin Fields going in front of him, kind of like that protege type player, right? Very similar skill set. I would argue that Justin Fields has a much better arm than Lamar Jackson. But yeah, QB 8 sounds fine because technically, if I'm sitting there in the 7th, 6th round, kind of shakes out to where these guys are going right now. Actually, you'd have to pay up a little bit more for Lamar than the next tier jump, which is to Dak Prescott, according to the NFC. But yeah, it's a sizable jump. Do you want 12 good games of Lamar Jackson, or do you want 16 good games of Dak Prescott? And we've seen Dak Prescott not really hold it together at times. And Lamar Jackson, you can put it together. So a lot to think about, a lot to chew on. But Lamar Jackson, clearly, I kind of like where he's at right here. Because I would take Justin Fields, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen over him. I would not take Deshaun Watson. I really hope Tua can get healthy. I probably wouldn't take Russell or Kirk or Daniel Jones. So there you have it. There you have it. What a day. What a day in the fantasy world of sports. Technically, it was yesterday. We're reacting to it today. But it's all good stuff. It's all good stuff. Tony Pollard and Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, all running backs that got tagged in 2023 just yesterday. What are your thoughts about the tag? I'll tell you right now, if you're a running back in the NFL, find another position. They just don't value you. And that's what's sad. They don't value you. It's just not good. Dynasty rankings. Saquon Barkley. He's above all three of those guys for me. Tony Pollard. Let's go, though, man. Let's go. Tony Pollard is pretty good. And what a great time for Star Drew. Come into the chat. Appreciate you boys stopping by. Couldn't be happier to hear from you. It's been a nice off season. We're going to start ramping up here pretty soon. Wanted to do a live stream today to just share some thoughts. Nothing too crazy. But currently talking about Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs. If you had to rank those three, where would you rank them? In Dynasty, I think it's pretty clear. It's Saquon Barkley. Probably, see, if Tony Pollard has a backfield of his own, I could see it being Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs, what he did last year is great. We just don't see it happen back to back. We don't. And now there's uncertainties at the QB position in Las Vegas. And I don't know how to necessarily feel about that. Do I think he's going to get a lot of work? Yeah, sure. Do I think teams are going to, adapt to it? Yeah, of course. Do I think their quarterback is going to be a huge upgrade over Derek Carr? We don't know that yet. Jimmy Garoppolo, upgrade over Derek Carr. Game manager? Yes. Ability and talents? I don't know, right? You just don't know. Aaron Rodgers would be a clear upgrade, but that's seeming more and more unlikely as the day passes. Right now, the Raiders have the number 7 pick in the NFL draft. And when looking at it, they do have the potential to grab one of those 3 quarterbacks, right? Will Levis, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, maybe even Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson is by far a prospect, none the least, though. I don't know. If you're judging that based off of pure talent alone, it's interesting because Florida was hard to watch sometimes last year, and they were rolling out Anthony Richardson. And I get it; you cannot deny the talent, and I hope he has a fine, successful career. But no, I'm okay off of that. We could go back to this article here because it talks about Saquon Barkley, it talks about Tony Pollard. Again, $10 million. He set that career high in rushing yards, 1,300. But guess what? He lost out to Josh Jacobs. But yeah, he's still dynasty-wise. He's going to be 26 next year. He's about, I'd say 6 range for me. If you're looking at a win now situation, I still think Christian McCaffrey gives it to you. So I have him higher. Kenneth Walker, I think they're going to be I think Seattle as a whole is going to be a little bit better next year. And they were good this year. They were that Cinderella story, right? What's his name? Brock Purdy was the Cinderella story, but the Seattle Seahawks were the Cinderella story team. So definitely look for K9 to have an even better year. Travis Etienne, if he can cut down on those fumbles and they can finally get him involved in the passing game, yes, a lot of success coming for Travis Etienne if they can show him some passing game love. Saquon could get 800 to 1,000 this year, maybe. Well, he topped 1,300 last year. Daniel Jones signs the contract. Isaiah Hodgins is their wide. They're going to get a wide receiver. They're going to draft one. They're going to sign someone else in free agency. They need another wide receiver there. Wan'Dale Robinson maybe, but wasn't very healthy. Chose not to be healthy. I don't know. Chose not to be healthy. He didn't choose not to be healthy. All right. But what I'm saying is, yes, he He was not healthy for a large portion of the year. But yeah, gotta look at that. A couple teams may a doot? I don't know what that means, Star Drew. Josh, hi. Thanks, Josh. Hired you back. Hope your day's going well. We're wrapping up here pretty soon. But if you want to leave any thoughts, right? We have all this new information to kind of gather here. Lamar Jackson tagged. Derek Carr finds his new home. We talked about those guys. Daniel Jones signs his new deal. Saquon Barkley gets tagged. Who else? Tony Pollard got tagged. Tony Pollard is someone that I'm very high on because now we have to wait for the other domino to fall. What happens to Ezekiel Elliott? Does he stay? Is he a free agent? We have to see. But 1,300 scrimmage yards last year. He was the running back 8 last year in fantasy PPR. And by golly, if he's alone, he's a top 5 running back in that Dallas offense. Top 5 running back, guaranteed. And I put that on a lot of things. I want to look at redraft rankings right now. I don't have my redraft rankings on. I suppose if I looked at my dynasty rankings, I could probably get a good understanding of where he would go in redraft. My dynasty rankings, he's right around 11. Yeah, redraft. I could see him going ahead of DeAndre Swift, Javonte Williams. He's going ahead of. That's probably it, actually. It's probably it. Yeah, so he's probably right around that 8 range. Where he finished last year is where he's at right now for me in redraft purposes. Dynasty, he's like 10, 11. But yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Josh Jacobs, mentioned him a little bit. I don't think he can replicate what he did last year. I said it. Oh my gosh. That's scary so much. But those are my thoughts. That's what I have for you all today. I appreciate you so much for listening. I'm going to get out of here. There's plenty of more news to cover as the weeks progress. So stay tuned. Be sure to drop a like, drop a follow. If you found something useful here today, those are Gabriel Miramontes' thoughts. March 8th, 2023. Leave a like. Leave a follow. I'm getting out of here. Maybe I'll come back with some new news next Wednesday. You'll see me. But there's so much more that can happen then. And I look forward to hearing all of you, your thoughts and everything like that. Again, I appreciate it. Thanks all. Have a good day. And I'm out of here. Peace.